Hello, everybody! This is Sunrandom Neko, waking up from my winter hibernation to greet the world for the day. And by greet, I mean welcome the new year with a can-do attitude, willful ignorance, and the hope that one of my wishes will come true. Which wish out of the thousands I have would that happen to be? It's the wish to see Pandora Hearts, a brilliant and beautiful manga by Mochizuki Jun, finally get an anime adaptation that's faithful to the original story and has visuals fitting of the manga's beautiful art. To Oz Vesalius, the young heir of the Vesalius dukedom, the abyss is nothing more than a fairy tale used to scare misbehaving children. However, he soon learns otherwise when his coming-of-age ceremony is interrupted by the mysterious Baskerville clan, who banishes him into the depths of the abyss for the sin of his existence. There, he forms a contract with Alice, a unique chain known as the Bloodstained Black Rabbit, in order to escape back to the surface, only to find 10 years have passed since his descent. Soon after, Oz joins the clandestine organization Pandora in order to uncover the truth regarding his sin and how it's connected to Alice's missing memories and a tragedy that occurred 100 years ago. Pandora Hearts is an Alice in Wonderland-inspired dark fantasy with an overarching mystery that was fascinating to see unravel despite being somewhat confusing to understand. But that confusion actually works in its favor because it makes you feel like you're in Oz's shoes as he's attempting to solve the mystery. This is apparent in how quickly the story throws us into the deep end, just like Oz, forces us to sink or swim, just like Oz, and has us shocked and confused with each new reveal, just like Oz. I really love how the mystery unravels despite the confusion, with clue after clue presented in a well-paced manner that took the story on all sorts of great twists and turns, with a major plot twist that redefined everything I thought I knew about the story and its characters. And I know you might be concerned about these twists since many of us have been burned by plot twists that exist solely for the sake of giving the story a plot twist, but I can promise that the twists in Pandora Hearts aren't contrived, and the major plot twist actually elevated the story and made it feel like a new experience when rereading it. In addition, the story is a mix of shonen, shoujo, and seinen that somehow managed to balance out enough to work. And its execution was so good that I genuinely didn't have any questions to ask nor wanted to ask by the end, because of how thoroughly everything was explained. The story is also a great example of Chekhov's gun, as everything served a purpose in plot progression, character growth, and character motivation. And the conclusion was satisfying in a way that recent manga just aren't anymore, and made me emotional with how it came full circle. As for the anime, it translated the manga mostly well, though it did end up creating an original ending due to lack of content. But it was fine and still enjoyable at the time. However, whether it be the manga or anime, the story wouldn't be able to work without its varied cast of characters. The disaster trio of Oz, Gil, and Alice, the members of Pandora, Sharon, Brake, and Rame, Elliot and Leo, the four dukedoms, Jack Vesalius, the Baskervilles, and even minor characters that only show up for a moment, all play a part in the grand scheme of things. No character is wasted, and many undergo satisfying character growth as the story progresses. The bonds amongst characters were amazing as well. I loved the unbreakable friendship between Oz and Gil, and how the bonds Alice forms with others made her more human despite her inhuman nature. The camaraderie of Oz, Elliot, and Leo was heartwarming and heartbreaking to experience. The ties that bind Sharon, Brake, and Rame together made their eventual fate romantically tragic. And I like how all these bonds and more are tied to the story's themes of existence, asking questions like what does it mean to exist? How do you exist? Do you need others to define and justify your existence? The story even goes beyond the typical questions of who and what are you by also asking, where are you? And the answer Pandora Hearts comes up with for these questions is that the combination of who, what, where, why, and how are what makes a person. That as long as someone lives and experiences life, they are a valid existence. In regards to production, the anime and manga are on different levels. The manga's art style is amazing, especially the cover art and double-page spreads, which are gorgeous examples of Mochizuki Sensei's work. In fact, I love the art so much that I got both art books, which were worth the dent in my bank account. The art was also consistent in quality from start to finish, which was pretty impressive considering the manga's 9-year run, though there was some noticeable improvement that I can only best describe as the art style maturing, if that makes any sense. In comparison, The art style and quality of the anime was alright, but it very much looked, felt, and sounded like it was from the 2000s. While it was cool back then and nostalgic now, I much prefer the manga in terms of aesthetics. At the very least, the voice acting was solid, and the OST was amazing, really suiting the dark fantasy vibes and gothic undertones. And if the OST reminds you of Madoka Magica or Fate, well, that's because it was composed by Kaji Urayuki, who also composed the music for Madoka Magica and parts of Fate. I love listening to her work, and I'm glad she was the one who brought Lacey to life, allowing me to finally hear the song that was such a key part of the story. Now, as much as I've been praising Pandora Hearts, that doesn't mean I can't see its flaws. The story does get pretty confusing, and you can end up forgetting things if you don't keep going until it's over. You also have to reread the story after finishing it in order for everything to make sense, which can be a daunting task. In addition, the philosophical discussions about existence and what makes a person do get a bit overbearing and long at certain points. However, most of the flaws I saw came from the anime. While I don't ever expect an anime to be a one-to-one translation of the manga, I still expect it to adapt the story in a way that does it justice. Unfortunately, in Pandora Hearts' case, the anime only adapts the story beats well, but takes creative liberty with everything else. These creative liberties can be seen in how heavily the anime leans into the shonen genre, as there were many battles that never occurred in the manga, and the dark fantasy elements somehow felt less horrific and looked kinda weird instead. Important details were removed or changed, like how legal contracts were made through a blood exchange, which the anime turned into a straight-up kiss. And original content was added that didn't need to exist, as it didn't improve upon what was already there, and mess with the foreshadowing and mystery unraveling that made the story work so well. This all ended up messing with the pace of the story, making each episode feel dragged out and tedious. And don't even get me started on the anime original ending, as the direction they went ended up being completely different from the manga, as all anime original endings tended to do, but in a bad way. Then again, it was the 2000s, and the manga wasn't even halfway done yet, but that only makes me want an updated anime reboot for Pandora Hearts even more. Overall, Pandora Hearts the manga gets an A+, while the anime gets a C-. The anime is okay and makes me nostalgic for the 2000s. It even has some good points that put it above the manga, such as the humor and the soundtrack. However, the manga is vastly superior in comparison, and while it does have its flaws and is not quite a timeless classic, it's definitely a must-read, especially if you enjoy Alice in Wonderland inspired media, because it's the best creative use of the IP that I've seen in anime and manga so far. Then once you've read it, you have to read it again, because now that you know the truth, you notice all the foreshadowing you missed before, because you no longer blindly trust in the validity of everything you're told, making the story seem new despite nothing changing except your knowledge and perception. And as I put this review out into the world, I hope my wish to see the story get the updated anime reboot it deserves comes true, cause if Spice and Wolf and Fruits Basket can get reboots years after their first adaptation, then surely someday, Pandora Hearts can get one too. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Reminder that this is just my opinion, so you can take it with as many grains of salt as you want. I don't mind either way, and would love to know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Please feel free to like, subscribe, and comment which anime or manga you'd like me to give my 2 cents about next. This is some random Neko, going off to wish upon a star for Pandora Hearts to get an anime reboot soon. Don't forget to keep calm and just meow.